Basically, he was just saying, look, I know you can handle this life, but you don't want it. And I was like, yeah, I don't, man. I'm probably going to die by the time I'm 18 if I keep going the way I'm going.
I think you saw that you were kind of between two worlds.
Yes.
From church and then trying to be the street.
So he was like, all right, come here. And that's when he's like, look, you need to make a decision right now. He's like, because it's go time. He tried, obviously, to kill me. He's like, they killed your friend, man. Like, I didn't tell him, but I was thinking, like, you need to get out of my face right now, bro. I'm about to light you up. Yeah, like, this guy was about to end up in the back of my truck, bro. I was like,
I did everything for this job.
Yeah, dude, I did. And he said he saw him coming his way, and my dad was like, all right, it's go time. He's like, I already know what time it is. I know how the rules are here. So he said he put a bar of soap in his sock, and he just, like, wrapped it up. And he's like, all right, as soon as he gets over here, like, we're swinging at him. And the guy came over here, and he's like, hey, man, are you Daniel? And my dad was like, yeah, what's up? He's like, hey, man, I just want to tell you that Jesus loves you, bro. My wife looked at me, and she's like, you were always telling me stories about how your dad was before he came to Christ and how he would drink a lot and he was very abusive to your mom and sometimes to you guys. And she's like, and that's what you're becoming right now, dude. She's like, you're becoming like that. Yeah. So after that, she just told me, she's like, man, she's like, I don't even know who you are anymore, man. I remember she told me, she was like, you need to just go outside and drink till you pass out. She's like, because I'm not going to be dealing with you.
Wow.
She's like, in this house like that, and your kids don't need to see you like that. My scapegoat was always the fact that my wife didn't pray. You know, like someone would come up and want to pray with my wife, and she'd be like, no, thank you. So I was like, oh, okay, she didn't get saved. That's good for me. And then I get up, I turn around to go back to my seat, and Brother Javi's wife is praying with my wife. Dang it. And I was like, oh, man.
Hello, y'all. Welcome back to another episode of the No Days Off podcast. I'm your host, Ethan Garza. As always, we're here joined with our co-hosts,
Levi Garza,
Jason Nava.
And today in the studio, we have a very special, important, amazing, talented, supernatural guest here today with us.
Yeah, come on.
Sergio Puente.
Yeah.
Give it up for Sergio Puente.
Thanks, guys.
We had to book him 7 years in advance.
Yep, 7 years.
Yeah, he didn't have any openings for us. It took us a long time to get him on to the show.
I was able to squeeze you guys in, so.
We have 10
good,
minutes.
that's good.
We got 10 minutes.
I got 10 minutes.
10 minutes.
We're grateful for him to be here. That's awesome, Sergio.
Tell us about yourself, Sergio.
Well, yeah, man, I mean, I'm 32. I recently just came back to church. Me and my wife have already been coming for about 6 months, man. The thing is, me and my wife were both raised in church. She was coming to the West Local Church at the time she was young. At 12, I started going to the McAllen Church with my mom. Not willingly, obviously, right? Me and my sister were always dragged there, man.
By force, they dragged you.
Yeah, man, it was by the year sometimes that they had to. My mom had to kind of like chase me down around the neighborhood and be like, where's he at? Because he's out here running the streets, and when church is going to start.
We gotta go to church. Sergio running down the street.
Yeah, that's how I grew up, man. I grew up, some people say, on the wrong side of the tracks of where I lived. I didn't really notice that because I thought everybody grew up like that.
Yeah, the way you were living, that was normal for everyone.
Yeah,
That's how you thought.
It was normal, man, to grow up. If you have a two-parent household, one of them had probably been to jail for a couple of times. To me, that was normal. And if you didn't have both parents, you had a single parent, it was also normal. It wasn't until we started going to church and, you start to see how the family life really is supposed to be. It was kind of awkward to me, Other kids would talk to me, and I was like, what? You have both parents? Like they don't have records? Like, that's...
Oh my gosh, you're clean.
Who are you? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're weird.
Yeah, I was like, you're weird. That, or I thought, like, man, your dad must be pretty much up there, and in the streets for them, you know what I mean? Like, just things like that. But yeah, man, met my wife in church. When I met her, I was already enlisted. That was the whole thing, man. When I was going to church, like I said, we were dragged there. Mm-hmm. I didn't like it at all. My father had passed when I was 11, so I grew up without a dad. So when I was 12, we were already coming to the church, right? But like I said, I grew up on the wrong side of the tracks, so all that street stuff was normal to me. So my mom, at that age that I was, it was, you would have to go to the children's church.
Oh, okay.
So it was really, really like, man, what am I doing with these little kids? Even though I'm a little kid by myself, but it's like I tell people like my mentality was already.
Yeah, your mindset was
Yeah.
already as an adult.
You had to grow up a little
I was.
faster.
You have to grow up quick, man. I was already. My mindset was already 16, 17.
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
I'm here trapped in a 12-year-old body. You know what I mean? That's just pretty much how it was. And yeah, man, we would leave church on Sunday, and I'd go back to running the streets with my friends who were already, we were already little hoodlums running around.
Little rascals.
Yeah,
Little rascals.
yeah, pretty much. And it wasn't until I got into some really bad heat, man. So the way that I grew up, right, my father had done 3 years in prison, and when he came out, he was already saved. He had given his life to Christ. And it wasn't one of those things that were like, oh, I found Jesus in prison. It was one of the things where he really found Jesus in prison. And when he came out, he told my mother, like, listen, we're going to go to church, and if you can't come with me, then I understand, and we can't be together.
Yeah, yeah.
And he gave my mom this whole spill. He's like, look, I already been divorced. I already got an ex-wife and 3 other kids. If you're going to leave me, hey, it is what it is, but this is where I'm going. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Wow.
So my mom.
When you were a kid?
Yeah, when I was a kid. And my mom was like, no, let's go to church. Just, let's do things right. But in that time, my father got sick. You see, my father drank a lot when he was younger. So he ended up getting cirrhosis of the liver when he got older. He also had hepatitis C.
Dang.
And back in the 90s and the 80s, the doctors weren't really checking in a lot of blood when they donate, stuff like that. So they couldn't pinpoint how he got the hepatitis C. They were saying it could either be from the tattoos that he got in prison or because from a blood transfusion he got when he was a teenager. He got into a rumble somewhere and they cut his head open. And they had to give him a blood transfusion, Wow. So they couldn't pinpoint how he got that. But yeah, he did 3 years in prison. He got witnessed to in prison. The crazy thing is, because I remember hearing this story when my father would witness to people about Jesus Christ, he would tell them the story of how he came to Christ. And that story really stuck with me, right? Because, as a son, you always want to be with your dad. It doesn't matter, you always want to be with your dad.
Yeah.
And I remember he was telling the story how he was in prison, and obviously in prison, you separate yourself by race. And he said that a lot of, it was a white guy's turn to take a shower. And so the Mexicans were waiting to take a shower. He said that one of the white guys came out of the shower, and he saw this real big, buff white guy, right? And he said he saw him coming his way, and my dad was like, all right, it's go time. He's like, I already know what time it is. I know how the rules are here. Like, it's time to go. So he said he put a bar of soap in his sock, and he just, wrapped it up. And he's like, all right, as soon as he gets over here, we're swinging at him. And the guy came over here, and he's like, hey, man, are you Daniel? And my dad was like, yeah, what's up? And he's like, hey, man, I just want to tell you that Jesus loves you, bro.
Wow.
And my dad was over here thinking, what kind of tactic is this? You're in here now.
Sneak attack.
I'm not
Up in my guard.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Jesus loves you.
He's like, all right, so what, right? So he was like,
Bring
okay.
him too.
Jesus?
Yeah, exactly.
Onta Jesus.
Yeah, so my dad was just kind of like, okay, so what, And that guy started to witness to my dad,
Wow, that's awesome.
ended up praying with my dad. And that guy was there for, I think, a triple life murder.
Wow.
The guy had walked into a McDonald's and caught his wife with another guy or something and got mad, went to his car, came back and shot up the whole
At a
McDonald's.
McDonald's.
Shot the whole McDonald's.
Yeah, this was back in the 80s or something like that. So that's how that guy ended up in prison. The way my dad ended up there where that guy was at the prison where he was at was getting full. So they had to transfer some people out. So the only one that was available was, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's somewhere near Dallas. It was called the Michael Unit. It was where they keep everybody that's on death row, everybody that's doing double life murder.
They're not getting out of prison.
They're not getting out of prison.
Yeah.
And my dad was only doing 3 years. So when they found out he was there for 3 years, everybody was kind of like, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
I don't know. My prison was getting full. What are you doing here?
Send him to Alcatraz.
Yeah, it's they just transferred me over here because of that. Yeah. So, back, that was a little backstory. But then come to when my father got out of prison, he was really saved. He was radically saved.
Wow.
And, 3 years in prison, all he had to do was just read books. And that's what he would do. He would tell everybody and tell me, all I did was read books on religion, all different types of religion. And he just kept coming back to that Christianity this is what's right. Everything else has, kind of secret back ways and it's the Bible plus this book. It's the Bible and this.
Wow, okay.
And my dad was, my dad kind of was just like, why? Why does it have to be this and the Bible? Why can't it just be this is the word and that's the word and that's it?
Yeah, why can't it just be the Bible? Yeah.
So that's how we started to know about Christianity. You know what I mean? And after he passed, obviously my father was strict, right? I mean, being 3 years in prison, how are you not going to be strict with your kids? He was very strict with us, but then, like I said, he passed. So at 12, my mother started to get witnessed to by the neighbor that lived behind us, because my father would witness to him as a young teenager, and he grew up. He found the door, and then he witnessed to my mom. So that's how we started coming over here.
Your dad went to the door?
No. My dad at that time was already like kind of sick, so he couldn't really be out and about a lot. And if it was to go work, because he was a welder. So he was like, look, if I'm not gonna be able to make it to church, but I got a job to do, so I'm gonna go do that job, put food on the table, and just he would like study. He would sit there for like hours in the living room, just reading the Bible. Wow. I remember he would have his Bible out, and he would have like a journal to be writing stuff, and then he would have like another different religion on the book, and he'd be comparing them and writing notes. And it was just one of those like.
It was like studying, diving.
Yeah,
in.
it was. It was a trip, man. Because if you would see my dad was like, he looked like one of those old school OG cholos, goatee, hair like myself, comb back, but he was all tatted up, more than me.
And how old were you at this time?
I was probably around 6 or 7 years old, about the age of about my son right now, like 8, around there.
So at that time when you're at your age, what was going on in your head? Like, what did you think about that as your dad looking through that? Did that affect you in any way? Did you ever come to your mind, like, why is my dad studying these religions? Like,
I thought that was cool, because I remember I told him one time, because I got in trouble, because I told him, I saw him doing that. Like I said, any son always wants to be like his dad. That's just the way it is, that I've always seen it. And I remember I walked up to him and I was like, Dad, I want to be like you when I grow up. And man, I guess he was just in that zone, and he got upset, man. I remember he slammed his Bible and he just started yelling at me, and I started crying, because I was like, why are you yelling? And he was yelling at me, and my mother had to come in, because he went on a trip, and he started yelling at me, and he's like, why do you want to be like me? I did 3 years in the state penitentiary. He's like, I have an ex-wife with 3 kids, and you want to be like me? No, son, you need to be better than me. He's like, you need to do this. He's like, you don't need to be like me. And I told him, no, Dad, I want to be like you. Like how you're studying the word right now. Like, I didn't know it was the word of God. He's like, but that's what he always says. He's like, oh, it's the word. It's the word. I was like, no, I want to be like you, like studying the word. Like, I was kind of like already like, oh, I'm in trouble, man. I'm going to get spanked. And my dad kind of like zoned out of it, and he was like, all right. Just, kind of like, get out of here, shoot. I was like, okay. And my mom and my dad talked, and I was like, man, after that, we had fun times, you know what I mean? I mean, son.
I guess he didn't understand. I guess he was like the shame and guilt, right? Going on like what? How can my son want to look up to me like this?
Yeah, man. I mean, that's how it is, right? And then as I got older, my father passed, like I said, and I was 12. I got older, and all I would hear was the stories of how it used to be. Of like, man, like your dad was an OG, man. Like your dad was one of the first. Like your dad had a lot of respect over here, and he had respect over here. And that, hearing stories like that fed to me, it just made me want to be more like him. And then especially growing up where I did, like I said, in the 90s, man, and in the early 2000s, if you, how do I put it? It's like I tell kids, because right now where I work in a corrections facility with juveniles, and I tell these children all the time, you guys are growing up on drug addict music. It's cool to party, it's cool to do drugs. My generation is different. My generation grew up on drug dealer music. My generation was like, I'm gonna be the hardest gangster there ever was. Scarface is gonna be second to me. Like, I'm gonna be the biggest, baddest dude there ever was. Scarface. Yeah, like that was our mentality. Our mentality was, the structure was like this. Nowadays kids, which is right. Kids look up to people that go to college. They look up to Bill Gates. They look up to Elon Musk and stuff like that. When I grew up, no, we were looking up to the OGs on the block, because those guys are the ones that had the respect. You couldn't do anything in our neighborhood unless they said so. You know what I mean? They protected us more than the police did. The police.
Well, the kids in your community.
Yes, of course.
The kids in your
community. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean. The cops would come and start asking questions, and to us, those were the bad guys. You know what I mean? Those like, hey, man.
You asking too much.
Yeah, like, I don't talk to cops, man. We would like spit on the floor. We don't talk to cops, man. Get out of here. And then the OGs would come and be like, hey, come here. What do you ask you? Nah, I asked me if I knew so. What'd you say? I said, I didn't know. He's like, all right, man. Good job. Here's a 20. Go. Okay. Those guys were the ones that, when my father passed away, those guys were the ones that took the time to, hey, come and throw the football. Hey, man, let me show you how to shoot a jump shot. And then they had kids of their own, so those kids became our friends.
Yeah.
Hey, we're friends, not knowing that those guys,
influencing your life,
were influencing in my life.
Yeah.
It's it would come to a point where like, hey man, you know what? I got this backpack. Can you take it like 2 streets down to so and so? I was like, oh, okay. As a young youth, right? Because you're not young where you don't know, but you're still innocent enough to where like, oh, this guy, like, he's my friend. He's my dad's friend. He's like, hey, take this backpack over there. Acceptance. Like 2 streets down. Oh yeah, and you take it to like so and so, and they're just like, cool, man. Hey. Yeah, hold on. And then they give you the backpack. Hey, go and take the backpack back. Okay, cool. And then you just, 30 seconds. That's all it took, 30 seconds. Then you go off and you go play with your friends. And you go play basketball. You know what I mean? And it went like that through a couple of years until you start, realizing, hey, these group of people don't like us because we're from this side of the tracks. Well, why not? You start to realize, okay, there's a difference here. There's a song from an artist that we always grew up listening to. A lot of these kids, they used to listen to that artist. His name is SPM.
SPM?
Yeah, South Park Mexican. Mm-hmm. And there's a song that he sings that I was like, man, that's a real song. It's called Real Gangster. And the whole basis of that song is he's telling a story of he lives on the wrong side of the tracks and his friends are a gangster. And in his song, that character says, he goes, I grew up around the gangs. I wasn't affiliated, but I knew what they loved and I knew what they hated. Meaning he wasn't a gangster himself, right? That character in that song. But he knew the do's and don'ts of his neighborhood. Yeah. And that's how it was with us. Certain people didn't like us because, you're from this neighborhood. Like, well, what does that have to do with me? I'm just over here, at the corner store buying a Gatorade, and you're over here telling me you're from this neighborhood and that you don't like me. We couldn't fathom that. But as young, misguided youth, we don't care. You know what I mean? To us, that's the enemy. Okay.
That's crazy.
You're the enemy, so what's up? And it's, like I said, back then, it wasn't no pushing and shoving matches. It was you're either all bark or you're all bite, And if you don't deal with that issue with that individual, then when you get back to your neighborhood, you're getting dealt with. And that's something that we didn't want, right? It's like getting in trouble with your parents. You need to do good or you get in trouble when you come home, right? So that's how it was. And over the years of your misguided youth, that's how it went. I was 14, 15 years old, and I was already running around in the streets. Like I said, my mom would have to go look for me in the streets because she'd be like, yo, we got to go to church. And I'm over here like, I can't go to church right now. I got stuff I got. No. Grab me by the ear and take me to church. But, a lot of...
I'm here doing the Lord's work out here.
Yeah. I'm over here trying to get money. And I was like, nah, get over here.
I go to church.
Yeah. And... the thing was that when my father got out of prison, a lot of the OGs in my neighborhood respected him because, hey, man, he did 3 years in prison. He has the stripes, he has the status. And my father would always tell everybody, they're like, look, man, I'm a Christian. I don't do none of that anymore. He's like, but you come up to me and you try to step up to me, you better come step correct. Yeah. Because I'm not scared to go back to prison. And he would always, one quote that he would always say to people, and I use it now with even my kids and the juvenile and even my kids at home. I always tell them, don't take my kindness for weakness. Mm-hmm. And I remember seeing the OGs like, nah, man, hey, I get it, Mr. Daniel. You're a Christian, Mr. Daniel. I get it. They would shake my dad's hand. And I mean, it's crazy because my father was a Christian, but...
He didn't mess around.
Yeah, he didn't mess around. And it was weird to see him, like, study the Bible, but then when cops come around and they would ask him, like, questions, my dad was like, My dad was like straight up with him. He's like, dude, I don't know. I didn't say anything. I'm a felon. So no matter what I say, you're not going to take it in the right context. So what's the point of me talking to you? I'm just wasting my time. Yeah. And the cops would be like, all right, thank you. So he would not say anything, but at the same time still make his stand like, I'm a Christian. Yeah. But I live here. I'm not going to, that has nothing to do with me and my family. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it was just kind of weird seeing that. But yeah, man, that's how I grew up around misguided youth. And then... it came to a point where, I was coming to church with my mom, with my sister, hearing the word, and the preachers always tell us, you're going to hell, and then, and I was like, I was a kid who grew up on the wrong side of the tracks. Man, I don't have a lot of money. I would see the drug dealers' kids with a lot of money, wearing Jordans, all this stuff, and I'm over here like, bro, I'm from a single parent income. Like, what are you talking about? I'm going to hell. I'm already there. Like, that was my mindset. Like, I'm already there, bro. What I mean?
So, you spend your whole teenage life in church, right?
Yeah.
Like, you were going faithfully? So, tell us about from, like, teenage years to...
Yeah, so, that's what I'm getting into. So, what happened was, it got to a point where I was messing around in the streets. I ended up getting in trouble. And I had to, like, okay, man, either...
Make a choice.
Yeah, make a choice. And I remember the guy that... the person there who was in charge of all of us, you know, he had grace on me, man. He like told me straight out. He goes, look, you need to make this decision right now. Either you're about this life or you ain't about that life. He's like, right now, right off the bat. And I was like, man, you know what? Like, I guess it's not. Like, I've earned my stripes with you. You know what I'm about. You know I can handle myself. But yeah, I don't see my life going anywhere, doing stuff like this. And he said, okay. He goes, I understand. He goes, you were a good guy. He goes, you know, you played by the rules. Yes, you did your mess ups. So this is what I'm gonna do for you. You don't come around here anymore. You don't talk to my kids. You don't talk to me. You don't associate yourself with me or my kids anymore. He goes, obviously you live here. I can't do nothing about that. He goes, I'm respecting the fact that you came up to me. He goes, but if you're gonna be about school and be about that God life, then you need to be about that because I'm getting my kids ready to take over when I'm gone, which meant like the streets.
Yeah, that's crazy.
How old are you when that happened?
15 years old.
Oh, okay, so you're still pretty young.
Yeah, man. So you know, that guy had grace on me, and he was like, okay. He's like, I know. Basically, he was just saying, look, I know you can handle this life, but you don't want it. And I was like, yeah, I don't, man. I'm probably gonna die by the time I'm 18 if I keep going the way I'm going.
You think he saw that you were kind of between two worlds?
Yes.
From church and then trying to be the street?
Yes.
And he noticed it?
Yeah, and he noticed it because I was hungry for it, man. I was like, I wanted to be that guy, you know, at my age with no father, misguided youth. Like, all of my friends were getting locked up. Yeah, I had 2 friends that actually had died.
Oh.
Yeah, man, and it was that decision, man. I remember he had passed away, and we like had like a hood meeting, and we're like, this is gonna get handled. Like, you know, this is gonna get handled, and I was like, man, like that's when I was like, man, this is for real.
Yeah.
Like these guys are gonna go and do something crazy, and I'm here involved with these guys, and it's like, you know, and that's when I pulled that guy away, and I'm like, hey, dude, like I'm not gonna take that ride with you. So he was like, all right, come here. And that's when he's like, look, you need to make a decision right now. He's like, because it's go time. And like, it's like, this is like, he tried obviously to kill me. He's like, they killed your friend, man. Yeah. Like, you understand that. Like, you grew up with this kid from the sandbox. You shared juice boxes with this guy. And they killed him. Like, you sure you don't want to take this ride?
How old was he?
I think he was 15 as well.
Damn, what the heck, bro? 15
Yeah, man, we were...
You're old.
I had already caught an assault charge.
They were matured already.
Yeah, man. That's why I see a lot of 15-year-old kids, man, and I'm just like, man, bro, like, if you were from my generation, we'd destroy you, bro. We would eat you, dude. Like, I would see people walk up to you and be like, what size shoes you are? And if you didn't say my size, homie, what's up? Like, then, like, your shoes were coming off your feet.
Yeah.
So, yeah, man. And then, I
feel like that life is so easy to be sucked into. I see it with a lot of the youth.
Yeah, man.
So easy. And it's just the environment, the pure pressure.
Yeah.
It's like, it's a status thing because you want to be respected.
Yeah.
And this is the way to do it in that neighborhood.
But it's not,
like,
it's not.
Search this.
What you start to realize is that it's not respect, man. It's fear.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
It's
that's
fear.
what I was gonna say.
Yeah, they change.
You're either gonna be because you're coming from that hood life, right? You're coming from that, I guess, like this clan style thing, right? Like you're either gonna jump on board or not. You're weak. You're this and that, or fear for your life.
So
I better join.
this extreme where it's like,
So they start doing more things and more things. If not, because once they see you're not doing it, well, what? You're either that, we're gonna kill you, right? If you don't want to do this,
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad it never got to that where they're like, we're gonna kill you. But you know, the guy was like, look, man, either you're about this life and you're gonna take this ride, or you're not about this life. But don't ever associate yourself with us anymore. Then, like, understand that you're from this neighborhood and we get it. You know what I mean? Like, you grew up here, you live here, you've put in work here, so we understand. But right now, it's decision time. Either you're gonna go,
either all in or out.
Yeah, you're either all in or all out. I'm actually working on a sermon, kind of on that. Because there's a movie and it's an old movie, right? It's called Blood In, Blood Out.
oh yeah.
I've heard of that.
Right, but yeah, it's a classic movie, of course. But that's how it kind of was. Like either like blood in, blood out, man. Like this is your family.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I was just, I didn't say that they weren't my family. It was just like I just can't do this, man.
Yeah.
I don't know what was gonna happen on the ride. I don't know what. I wasn't part of that discussion. I was just part of like, hey, something like justice needs to happen. You know what I mean? I don't know what it was, or I mean, I was young at the time. I didn't know. This was years back. And before anything was ever made, I just walked away from that life, and I said, nah, man, this isn't for me, bro.
Yeah. And so what would your advice be to kids that are kind of being sucked into that life, or they're kind of on the edge, they're thinking about it, they're being peer pressured, or they're in that environment? What would be your advice?
Choose your own path, man. You got to choose your own way, because at the end of the day, what I told my kids in the juvenile system is your friends are not going to do the time with you.
No, I know.
Like they're not. Like your friends are out there in the free. You know, that's what these guys call it.
Yeah.
You know, man, you know, I can't wait till I get that out there in the free. And they think they're gonna have respect. But in reality, it's like, no, dude. Like
They don't care about you.
They don't care. Like you committed a crime with your buddies, but where are your buddies at? They're at home playing Xbox, playing PlayStation, and you're here with me. You know,
You're here with me, Sergio.
and and I'm a drill instructor, bro, and I'm gonna yell at you 24/7. You know, you even look my way when you're supposed to. I'm gonna be screaming in your face.
Yep.
So you can either live, you know, you gotta choose that life. You know, you have to come to a decision where you're either gonna be a leader or you're gonna be a follower.
Oh yeah.
So what would you say to kids that are in church and you see that they're in those two worlds? It's like, what would you tell them? Like, a way of
That it's not a coincidence that you're there seeing the two worlds.
yeah.
It's not a coincidence. Sometimes you won't see the two worlds until you're older. Count it a blessing as you're young now, and you're being granted those two paths that you can see, like, this is the right one and this is the wrong one.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you don't see the right path when you're already too deep in the wrong one. And then by then it's like you're gonna have to backtrack, and it's kind of hard.
You gotta find God on your own.
Yeah, you gotta find God on your own instead of someone showing you the way. When you have a parent like my mom was hard, man. My mom was strict. She would, like I said, drag us to church, and she didn't care if we came late. You're gonna go.
That's good.
Yeah, like my mom would go.
Still that in y'all.
Yeah, like, you know, my mom would go to those OG's houses and be like, hey, did my son spend out here, like, with your son? And obviously, like, a lot of people think they're like, oh, man, the hood life, people are disrespectful to a lady. Like, no, man. Like,
Mom didn't care she was going.
well, I mean, it's not that, but, you know, you respect those
Yeah,
elderly
respect
ladies
them,
in your
yeah.
neighborhood. You protect them. You take care of them. Yeah. You know, and they'd be like, no, Miss Josie, you know, Sergio didn't spend the night here. And my mom, they're gonna call me on the, like, cell phones are barely coming out. She just start calling myself like, you better get your butt here now. So they're like, go hopping fences, running through alleys, like, oh, trying to get to church. Like,
Following you.
yeah, like, oh, I gotta go to church.
Jump in the car.
Yeah, man. And then, you know,
Back.
and it's crazy because when I, like, decided to, like, okay, man, I'm gonna change my ways and, you know, try to live right, was I heard, obviously, right, Pastor Roman's testimony. I had never heard of him, and he just came. He was like, "Yeah, twice dead." He was locked up, and he did all this, and I was like, "Oh, okay, this guy's just kind of like the guys in my neighborhood." Like, "Oh, okay, so this guy could do it." Like, "Okay, maybe I could do it," you know. And then, yeah, so I started to, like, okay, like, if I'm about this, like, I really got to give myself into this. That's always been my mentality. Like, if you're gonna do something, you better do 100%, or don't even do it at all. So, you know, I was 100% in the streets. Okay, so I'm not doing that anymore. Okay, let's do it 100% in church now.
Yeah.
So I did it. I mean, yeah, it was hard, but, you know, but I made my stands. I made my friends, my brothers, you know, my brothers in Christ, who I grew up with, who are all now pastors. You know, you got Pastor Jeremy, Pastor William.
Yeah. I got a scripture for that, actually. It's
Yeah.
Revelations 3:16, where the Bible says, you should either be hot, or because you are neither hot nor cold, I will spew thee out of my mouth.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, because he doesn't
Christian.
No, that's the best one. That's the best. Makes me sound
man.
holier.
I'm down.
My message version,
You look
because
warm,
you're not hot or cold, get out.
And it's like that with anything, whether in the street life or in the church. Like, hey, either you're in, again, blood in or blood out. Either you're in this or you ain't.
Yep.
Because you can't be in both. Either you're gonna associate yourself with us and you're gonna be down for the cause, or you're gonna be over there and you're gonna be with them on that side of the team.
No, it's true, man.
It's like,
You
man,
see that in church with the same goes for in church too, because like you're in church long enough, you see guys that are like barely holding on by the string in church.
they're here.
Yeah, they're here, but it's like, hey, bro, like, what do you want, man? Like,
Yeah.
you know, I see that you want this life, but it's like, bro, like, are you chasing God? Or are you chasing the things
And
of the world?
sometimes, you know, it takes that pressure.
Yeah.
Like I said, like this OG in my neighborhood, he had that grace on me, but he had to pull me aside and put the pressure on me.
You gotta talk to your brothers.
Yeah, either you're in this with us or you ain't.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and I mean,
That's how discipleship is.
Yeah, and like he's an old guy now, man. And I see him every now and then, you know, and I'm like, you know, he's old. He's like in his late 60s and he's in a walker. And I say, hey, man, what's going on? You know, Mr. Whatever. And he's like, hey, what's going on, mijo? And he gives me a hug and he's like, man, he's like, you straightened out, mijo? And you like straightened out. I was like,
Good kid, good kid.
yeah. And then I just shrugged my shoulders and he's like, it's good to see you. And then obviously I'm like, you know what, I better leave because, I mean, not because my life's in danger, but it's like that world sometimes still calls to you.
Oh, yeah.
You start seeing your old friends, like, hey, so-and-so, and you're just like, all right, man, I gotta go. You know what I mean? Yeah, you know?
Keep yourself in check.
Yeah, you start having conversations and you're just like, I shouldn't be in this conversation. You know? I gotta go. And stuff like that, you know, but it,
Oh, yeah.
you know, like I said, you know, then you
I'd
start.
say props props to your mom, because that's what parents are called to do.
Dude, my mom
Lead you
was
on the right path. Yeah.
Yeah, my mom was a hard lady.
Yeah, to think that she went through all of that to get you to church. Like, that's what parents should do. That's what we should do. Like, even when we're just evangelizing, try as hard as we can, fight so hard for a soul, because nothing is worth more than a soul.
Yeah,
you fight so hard for these other things or make such big deals about, you got to go to college. It's like, but you're not going to fight that hard for, like, someone's salvation.
Dude, my mom has always been a hard person. I mean, yes, she loves me, and of course, it's my mom, man. But she's always been about that tough love. And like I said, when I was young, I got into some trouble in the streets, and it's a crazy story, man. When I tell people the story, they're like, I can't see your mom being like that. And I'm like, bro, my mom.
I can.
My mom's from Mexico, man. She grew up in Reynosa, dude, in Reynosa, Tamaulipas, so she don't play around. So I got into some trouble, man, in the streets, and I had 4 dudes come to my house to come look for me. And tell me, like, hey, they're going to call me out. And it's funny because my mom jokes about it now, and she's like, you were there hiding. I wasn't hiding. There was 4 guys outside, and I'm over here trying to figure out, like, all right, who am I going to call to come help me out? And they came and knocked on my door, and they're like, your son needs to come out because, hey, this and this is going on, and we need to settle it right now. So my mom came into my room, and she was like, I don't know what you got going on in the streets, man. She goes, but you got 4 dudes out there, and either you need to take care. Yeah, she's like, you need to go take care of business, or I'm going to have the law come straight up in here. She's like, and you know how it is. Yeah, she was like, so-and-so doesn't like the law coming around here. So either you go handle it yourself or I call the law. I was like, you got to man up. I was like, all right. So there I go outside, hey, whoop-de-whoop, what's up, Yeah, and they were going to jump. Yeah, they were going to jump me, bro. Like, hey.
You want some food, water?
Whatever.
Some Xbox.
And, it was on. As soon as I came out, I knew what time it was. And my mom came out, and I'm thinking, like, all right, my mom's
Your mom's going to fight with you?
Yeah, no. Right, no. I thought my mom was going to come in. You little hoodlums, better get out of here right here, And I'm like, yeah, No, my mom came out. She's like, look, I don't know what business y'all had, but there's 4 of y'all and one of my son. So she's like, y'all do what y'all got to do, but it's going to be 1-on-1. And so I was like, man, so they're going fighting 4 dudes, dude, one right after the other. I ended up obviously getting my butt whooped, but I stood my ground, because in the streets is win, lose, or draw. What matters is as long as you get down. You know what I mean? Like, all right, hey, obviously they did what they accomplished, what they sought to accomplish was beat me up. You know what I mean? It happened. But at least, they were like, hey, he fought back. Yeah. He didn't hide out. He wasn't a punk. And after I freaking fought those 4 guys, got my butt whooped, then I got my butt whooped inside by my mom, you know what I mean?
No mercy.
No mercy.
Yeah, so I ended up getting whooped again, and that's when she was like, I don't know what you got going on in the streets, and she's like, either you're going to be in my house and serve the Lord, or you're going to be out there.
And you're going to get more of that.
Yeah, she's like, you better start packing your
in
bags.
my house.
Yeah, man, and she was like, start packing your stuff. Oh, man, and I was like, man, where am I going to go?
Was it like a reality check?
Yeah, a reality check. Like, yeah, I mean, I packed my stuff up, and I went to a friend's house, for a couple of weeks, and it was just like, that's when at that time I thought, like, all right, I am about this life. Like, we were just hustling, bro, making money. People would come and drop us off backpacks of stuff, and, that's what entices the youth, bro. You start to see the money. And it wasn't until, like, oh, man, I'm making money, bro. Like, heck, yeah. I bought myself Jordans, bought myself, like, I had everything that I wish I could have had at home. I had it out here, and I was like, the friends that I was living with, like, their family were about that life too. So to them, it was just like, oh, my son. And you're like, oh, he's my other son. And that's what entices you. Like, at that time, the devil plays with your mind, and you're like, man, this is the family I should have been born into, man. Like, man, like these, like, they go to, obviously, like I said, I grew up in the 90s, low riders were big at that time, that cholo lifestyle, man, and that's the lifestyle that they grew up in. And it was just like, boom, like 2 peas in a pod. Until I said it got to that real point in my life where they're like, hey, it's gonna go down. I remember like the prodigal son, I had to come home with my tail tucked between my legs, and my mom accepted me with open arms, and she was like, you had enough? She's like, you had enough? Right? Yeah, and I was just like, and I told the truth. I was like, look, I don't know. I just know that I just can't do this anymore. She was like, all right. I started coming to church, and
how old are you in this time?
Around 15, man. Around 15,
so you started coming to church, and you chose that life?
Yeah, I chose to come to church at that time. Like, okay.
When did you get, like, radically saved? When you were a teenager?
Yeah, at 15, man, we got radically saved. We heard...
the whole generation, all you guys?
That whole generation, man. Pastor Roman would always come to preach. At that time, it was Pastor Joe Moreno.
Who was at the time when you started actually coming into church and, like, fully surrendering, who was your... I guess who was your like mentor at the time? Who would you?
Who's discipling
look up to?
you?
Yeah, who's discipling you? Who would you look up to in the church?
There was a guy, I still talk to him to this day, man, in the McAllen church. His name is Albert Flores. Shout out
Albert
to
Flores.
Oh, yeah.
that guy, man. Him and Pastor Conrad Murillo, they took me under their wing, man. And every day, bro, they would just like tell my mom, don't worry, we got him. And yeah, man, those guys would really take me under their wing. Albert Flores, man, he really like, he grew up in the kind of the same situation. So he kind of understood, like, look, man, you don't got to be like this. And he's the one that, like, taught me a lot and this, and kind of took the time to shape and mold and really work with me. I was like, I don't get it. And he was like, you don't have to get it now, man. It's like, hey, it's like, don't worry about it. Like, when you're young, you know, you just want to, like, run wild, man. You're just like, you're getting pulled so many different directions. And every time I had a question, I was just like, yeah, Albert, like, what do I do? I remember one time I was going through some stuff and I was like, I don't know what to do. And he was like, look, sometimes God closes the door, but if we keep beating down the door long enough, you're going to break it down. And you're going to tell yourself it's God because the door opened. But is it really God opening the door, or is it that you're banging on the door so hard that it's going to come down? Mm-hmm. And I was like, man, okay.
It's your will, not God's will.
Yeah, and Pastor Conrad Murillo too, man. I mean, he was about that life, you know. So when I first met him, the first time I met Pastor Conrad Murillo was he came up to me and he was like, where you from? Like, and when real recognize real. So I didn't know he was a pastor. I just thought he was an OG because he came up to me and I mean the way he would dress, man, slacks, you know, his thick back, you know.
Oh, yeah.
He has that posture because he was about that life. Mm-hmm. He has that posture. He has that mannerisms. First time he met my mom, he's like, hi, you know, because at that time, from when I was 12, he was the assistant pastor.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was the assistant pastor of the McAllen church. So, you know, everybody obviously dealt more with him than with the actual pastor because he was out there evangelizing and everything. So when he saw my mom and he saw me, obviously, right, like the way that I dressed, just like a little cholo, man. And so he saw me. I didn't know who he was, his assistant pastor. And he came up to me and he was like, where you from? Just like that, straight up, where you from? Oh, man, I jumped up real quick. Hey, man, I'm from so-and-so, what's up? I thought this dude was about to what we call a cora check, like your heart, your corazon. Right?
In the church.
Yeah, hey, brother. Sometimes, man, when they tell you it's on site, dog. It don't care. You could be at church or you could be at McDonald's with your baby mama. Somebody come up to you and they're like, "Where you from?" Them, you better. Hey, I'm from so and so, and what's up? Like that's when you're gonna know. Like, okay, cool. And that's what I did. He was like, "Where you from?" Jumped up and I told him, hey, man, I'm from so-and-so. What's up? Like that. And here's this little, 13, 14-year-old punk kid, like stepping up to this dude. And he saw me and he was like, hey. He's like, yeah. He's like, no. He started to tell you that he's like, hey, Calmate Holmes. And I was like, okay, man, so what's up? He's like, nah, man, hey, I'm Pastor Conrad. And I was like, oh, Simon. And I shook his hand and he just sat down. And he's like, da-da-da-da-da. And I was just like, oh, okay, cool, man. Yeah. And he was the one, too. He would take me, hey, I'm going to take my sons to go play basketball. Come with us. And I was like, I don't really do that sports stuff, bro. He was like, just come with us, man. Just come. Because that's what it is, man. There's that saying that says, idle mind is the devil's playground.
Yeah.
And if you're not busy, bro, you're going to start to, I'm going to find something to do.
Yeah.
And that's how I was. If I wasn't with Albert Flores, man, I was with Pastor Conrad. Boom, if I wasn't with Albert, I was Pastor. And he would just say, hey, come and do this, come and do. And those are the ones that like, oh, okay, all right, And then at that time, Adan and America became our Bible study leaders. We put them through the ringer. We were just wild little 90 kids. Ringer. And then after him, your father took over as the teenage Bible study leader. And your father too, man, it's amazing how compassion is more intimidating than force. You know what I mean? Because you would have people like, you're gonna get right. You're just a little teenager, and you're like, man, forget you, bro.
Yeah, it's hard to respect.
Yeah. You're like, man, well, like
you're not
whatever.
Gonna receive that. You're gonna put your walls up.
Exactly. And with your dad, when he became our Bible study leader for the teenagers, it was different. Like I remember your dad pulling me aside all the time because I would just sit there in Bible study. Like I would pay attention, but I wasn't interacting with everybody because to me I felt like I don't have nothing in common with these guys. Like you guys are all so innocent. Like I would just sit there.
You guys are church kids.
Yeah, I would just sit there like okay, and your dad would pull me aside when all the teenagers were playing board games and stuff, and your dad would pull me aside and he'd be like, "It's okay," and I was like, "For what?" And he was like, it's okay. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, stop it, And then he would tell me, and he would tell me, he's like, you don't got to be so hard all the time, man. He's like, you can let your guard down. He's like, and he goes, he would seriously tell me, he's like, ain't nobody gonna jump you here. And I was like, well, I don't know that. And he's like, I know that. He's like, ain't nobody gonna jump you here, man. And I was like, all
I know
right,
the
all
Arab.
right. And like I could breathe a bit, like,
Yeah.
all right, if this dude says so, like, I remember there was one time, bro, like,
awesome,
like
man.
your dad came up to me laughing, and this pastor from somewhere in Mexico came over for the summer to do like some crusade. So his daughter wanted to come to one of the teenage Bible studies, and I was sitting. I think you guys were living in McAllen at the time, in these apartments, and I was sitting on your couch, and the couch was next to the door. And I still remember that day because I was like, "What's going on?" I was wearing a white shirt, khaki Dickies like always, and I had on these Nike Cortezes that I just bought, man. And at that time, I was bald. I had shaved my head bald.
Snap.
And, I was just there sitting down. And this teenage girl opens the door and she looks in. I think everybody else was in the kitchen. And I was just like sitting on the couch by myself. And I looked at her and she looked at me and she just like slammed the door. And I was just like, oh no. Dude, I was like, what happened? And then your dad comes on and he's like, what happened? I heard the door slam. And I was like, I don't know, there's a girl outside. And he's like, what do you mean there's a girl outside? I was like, I don't know, there's a girl outside. So he goes and calls her mom and she's like, Melody, there's a lady outside. He's thinking like an older lady. And they open the door and it's a teenage girl. And I guess that pastor, I'm guessing, it was like, I just remember the guy was dressed in a nice suit. And she came in and she like passed by me and she was like, hola. And I was like, oh, ¿qué onda? I was like, oh, ¿qué onda? So, And then she goes in there, whatever. And then, like, I was waiting for my ride. I'm like, oh, hey, my mom's here. I'm going to go. He was like, you sure you don't want to stay, Sergio? I'm like, yeah, I'm sure. He was like, no, Bible study's done. I fulfilled the duty to my mother. I came to Bible study. I'm going home. And, I left. Sunday, he comes up to me laughing. And he's like, yeah, man, that was Pastor so-and-so. But she was scared to stay for the Bible study because she said that she had opened the door. And she was like, she was telling him in Spanish. She was like, I don't know. I just got there. She was like, I didn't know I was in the right place. I opened the door and she's like, there was just this cholo sitting there and he just looked at me and I got scared and I closed the door. And I was like, and I'm over here like, oh, that was me. Like, oh, dude, like I felt bad. I was like, oh man, like here I am, like scaring people, like scaring like teenage girls, man. Like, I'm sorry. I was like, oh man.
All right, guys, we're gonna stop here real quick. Hey guys, if you like what you see here, go ahead and support us on our Patreon. In doing so, you'll be a big support in helping us in this ministry and contextualizing the gospel into this world.
And in doing so, you'll be able to help us out, get quality guests who got lined up for the year, and we'll be able to do without your help and support.
All this that we're doing for you guys, it isn't cheap, so we really appreciate your guys' help to support this ministry. So please, subscribe to the Patreon, share this video, and as always, no days off. Now, back to the episode.
All right, Sergio, we were talking about your teenage life and stuff
Yeah.
and your youth. If you can dive deep into like maybe transitioning, because how old were you when you got married?
I was 19.
So from let's start from like when you met your wife.
Yeah, man.
And into like
Sure.
going into after that with the military and stuff.
So, like I said, I grew up like that in the hood, and I started coming to church. I got radically saved, but it was still kind of not going anywhere. Everybody was working for someone, doing something. Everybody had already found their calling, and I was over here still. I had dropped out of high school, so I was
figure
like,
things out.
Yeah, I was like, man, school's not for me. I don't know what's going on. And I got kicked out of my high school. I got expelled, ended up going to an alternative school, and the Army recruiters were there, and they were like, "Come take this test if you want to get out of class." And I always liked the military. I always thought it was something cool. But I just didn't know how to go about it. So I took the little test. I passed, and the recruiter, like, this was his pitch, bro. Like, straight out, he was just like, "Look," he's like, "we come to these alternative schools all the time because it's easy. Like, it's easy for us." He goes, "You're out here running around with guns, thinking you're little thugs. He's like, why don't you join the Army and come and get paid for it?" And
There you go. Yeah,
and you
running
do.
around in the middle
Yeah,
with guns.
yeah. He's like, you're gonna be doing the same thing, but you might as well just get paid for it. And I was like, oh.
It was for the National Guard, right?
Yeah, you see, I had tried to go to the regular Army, but first I tried going to the Marines with my buddy, a good dude of mine. He was a friend of mine. We grew up as kids, and the Marines. I had got into a little bit of trouble with the law before, so the Marines were like, "No, like we're not gonna take you." The Army was like, "Yeah, we'll take you." I ended up doing everything with them, and then they were like, "No," they backed out. So I was like, "Man."
Dang.
And the National Guard guy was out there smoking a cigarette, and he was like, "Nambepa, come over here." So I was like, "All right." He's like, "We do the same thing, bro. We do the same thing." And so I was like, "All right."
Yeah, just here in Texas.
Yeah, so boom, went over there, did the medical, came back, and I was supposed to ship out in about 3 months. And so that was my plan, bro. Like, I had already on my contract, like, okay, like, they're like, "What do you want to do," right? And then the recruiter was like, "You seen Rambo? you see Full Metal Jacket? I was like, yeah. He's like, you want to do that? And I was like, yeah. Yeah.
Infantry.
Yeah, for real. They didn't even give me an option like, oh, we have this. You know, they were like, infantry. I was like, okay.
You can shoot guns.
Yeah, they like showed me this little motivational video and they were like, infantry. And then, yeah, man. And then they came back and they're like, regular infantry is full. They're like, we have something called 11 Charlie, which is infantry. And I was like, okay. They're like, but you get a cannon. And I was like, oh, yeah.
The whole pirate cannon.
Yeah.
Look at this video.
Yeah, for real, dude. And then I get to basic training, and I'm like, I gotta carry this thing on my back. What? Like a big old cannon like that.
Oh,
so I was like, geez.
You got married and then he left?
No. So what happened was, within those 3 months, man, that I was waiting to ship out, I got introduced to my wife.
Oh,
And we didn't like each other at first, bro. We're like arguing, like, whatever. And we just kept running into each other,
Like church events?
Yeah, church events. We just kept running into each other. And, I was obviously respectful. I was like, hi, sister, so.
Sister?
Yeah, sister. And then after a while, like, I saw that she was, like, my sister's friend. So I told my sister, like, hey, like, what's up with your friend? And then,
What's up with your friend?
and, my sister was like, well, that's my friend. Like, you want to get to know her, you got to go talk to her. And I was like,
Hombre.
Yeah, like, nah. So,
Actually, I want you to tell that story. What happened, like, when you first met her? Because you said you were always arguing with her.
it was at a single seminar, right? You know how the church does with all the single people.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna say who, right? But someone we all know was like, "Come over here, and I'm gonna introduce you to this girl." And I was like, "All right." So we ended up going, and everybody was already coupled up, and they were not gonna introduce me to my wife. It ended up being some other girl. So I'm there trying to talk to this girl that they were gonna introduce me to, but she's quiet, man. She didn't want to talk at all.
Like, feeling nothing.
Yeah, and I was just like, man, like I'm over here, like this girl doesn't even want to talk. But the girl next to her, because I was like talking to this girl, this other person about how I'm leaving to the military or whatever. And then the girl next to her, which was my wife, ends up saying, well, my friend's a Marine. And he said, and my buddy was a Marine, right? And like she was like, it was already getting like an annoying vibe. And I was like, oh yeah, well, I'm going to the army, so whatever. And she was like, well, the Marines. And I was like, well, your friend's gay, all right? Shut up about your friend. I'm not here to talk to you, you know what I mean? I was just rude like that. And she was like, well, whatever, right? So she ends up calling somebody else, like, so-and-so, like, this is not going, everybody's coupled up, and I got this guy being rude to me over here.
I got this guy being
gay. So we both,
my friend gay.
Yeah. I was like, well, your friend's gay. Whatever.
Your Riz.
Yeah.
Who's this person?
Insulting Riz.
We will cut it out, but who was this person who invited you?
It was, talking to some girl at the time. I was like, man, dude, like, whatever. So they end up, my wife, right, the girl that I'm talking to, she ends up leaving. I end up leaving too. So I'm like, man, everybody's coupled up. I ain't gonna be here with you all. Everybody's all coupled up. And the room's dim.
Yeah.
Like, the room's dim, and I'm over here like, hey, can I get some more breadsticks over here?
You see all the couples, Sergio?
Hey, I'm over here like,
Those friends are gay.
Man.
Your friends are gay.
Yeah, your friends are gay. I'm over here, some breadsticks. Your friends are gay.
Wait.
My wife ends up leaving. I end up leaving. We're going our separate ways. And then it's just every church event, dude, somehow we just ended up finding each other. And I was like, man,
So for context, she went to another church, and you were going to the McAllen church.
Yes,
right?
yeah.
He was going to Westico, right?
Yeah. She was
That
going
church
to
is-
West Church.
That was back in the day.
Yeah. So
Where they go.
you're gonna bring out the old guy, man. I'm gonna be like, what's up, man? Post up. So we ended up running into each other. And then I had to leave to basic training. So I ended up just, we were already kind of friends. And I told her, like, hey, well, I'm in basic training. Can I, like, write to you? You know what I mean? Because
Keep in touch.
yeah, because, it was going to be kind of lame. Like, I'm just going to write to my mom. You know what I mean? Like, can I write to you?
a girl.
Yeah, right, can I write to you? And she was like, sure, yeah. So while I was in basic training, I would write to her. And she would write to me. And that's how we got to know each other. Because we were just writing back and forth letters. So when I came down during Christmas, which they don't usually do that, but it was during wartime. So they were like, hey, you guys need to go spend time with your families because things are heating up in the Middle East. Like, the war was already full on. It had already been full on for years.
Yeah.
And they were like, things are heating up. More than likely, like, when you guys get back, you guys are going to go to your units and you're just going to
Get deployed, yeah.
Yeah, like, straight to the Middle East. So we're like, okay. So I came home. It was Christmas. It was Christmas time. I spent time with my mom. I spent time with her. And we just kind of discussed it, like, I want to start dating you. Like, do you feel the same way? She was like, yeah. So I had to go and talk to my pastor and then come and talk to Pastor Conrad because at that time he was the pastor here. I talked, and they both gave us our blessings. So we started, okay, to date. I went, finished my last 2 weeks of basic training, Came back. 6 months later, we get engaged, and then 6 months later, we get married. We got married here in the Wesco Church in January 13th.
2013.
2013, yeah.
That was 5 months before we moved here.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
that's
no,
what's
like
telling
3
us.
months. Got here March.
Yeah.
Wow.
We ended up getting married January, but it was kind of like, it was kind of weird, man, because we were never really together. I got engaged with her. 2 days later, I left for 3 months because I was already like going places with the military. I left for 3 months, came back, spent a couple of weeks here, left again, came back again, got married, went to our honeymoon. 3 days later, after our honeymoon, I ended up leaving for 4 months. Came back, left for a couple of weeks, left again for another 3 months.
So
So it was just back and forth, back and forth. And that's how we ended up leaving the church, man, because, you can't serve two masters, man. And then especially at that time, like, it was a different generation. We were very hard on each other as brothers. So I'd come to church, and I wasn't even really here at church. I would come and do my ministries.
Yeah.
So when I was here, I wasn't even hearing the pastor preach. I would come and do all my ministries that I wasn't even here for. So it just got to be really mundane. Really, like, I don't want to do this. Like, I come, I'm not even here preaching. I'm here outside doing parking lot.
Yeah.
Or I'm over there doing church, helping out in the children's church. Or I'm over here doing translation. Like, I'm not even hearing the word.
Yeah.
And it just got really mundane. And then I go over here with the army, and those are my brothers. Those are the ones I'm over here, like sucking it up with in the field, hot, wet, cold. And I'm here like, man, this sucks. And yeah, our brothers, we were hard on each other. And it got to a point where I ended up telling all of them, man, forget y'all, dude. Like,
The guys at church.
yeah, I was like, you guys have it easy. You guys work for people that are already established in the church. So, of course, you're going to have Sundays, Wednesdays off. Like, I'm over here a newlywed, trying to support my wife. She's going to college. I'm trying to pay bills. At the same time, I'm trying to be in the army. Like, it's just a whole lot of stuff. Like, I can't be committed to this. So I sat myself down for ministry. And then after a while, like, I gave a reference to you one time, Ethan, when we were talking.
Levi.
Levi. I get you guys confused all the time.
Same thing.
Yeah, so I told you something, and I've still found that to be true, that yes, iron sharpens iron, but what they don't tell you is that if you try to sharpen it too fast, you break the blade. You gotta go fast. You gotta go slow and smooth, slow to be sharp. You
Yeah.
can't just go really fast and sharpen the knife.
You're telling me something. We're doing parking lot.
Yeah, because you're gonna break the blade. So what good are you to your brother if you're trying to sharpen him, but you end up breaking him? You know what I mean? So that's what ended up happening to me. Like, I was just like, man, you guys are not even married. You guys are talking to the girls that you plan to marry, and yeah, it's easy for you because you're off every Sunday, you're off every Wednesday. You're able to fulfill your duties to your church. You're able to still be discipled. I'm not. I got these other duties that I signed a contract for. I signed my life for 8 years. I got to fulfill that contract. Okay, because like I said, my attitude since I was a kid was either I'm gonna do this 100% or I'm not. So I have to fulfill this contract. And I just couldn't, I was like, man, whatever, right?
You had to choose your master, which master you were going to serve.
So I ended up leaving again for a couple of months doing some training. And while I was in training, my wife got sick. And I think some other sisters were pressuring her as well. She's like, well, you're not coming to church and you just got married, so you're already backsliding in your heart. And also my wife was like, man, dude, like, this is a whole new church to me. I don't even know these people. And they're like, this is what they're telling me? She's like, I don't even want to go anymore. So when I came back, I had already made the decision in my mind, like, I'm just not going to go anymore. And I told my wife, like, look, I don't see myself going there anymore. I just got to take care of this and take care of you. And my wife was like, no, I feel the same way, man. She's like, you're like, that church is, I don't know, man. She's like, I don't even know them. They're already like telling me stuff. She's like, I just don't feel it either. And I told her, well, if you want to go back to your Wesco church, like, I get it, but you're going to go on your own. And the scary part now that I think about it, right, it was like, she told me straight out. She was like, no, I'm your wife. I'll follow you where you go. And sometimes as married men, man, we don't see that. Like, we can be going off of the cliff and they'll follow us. Like, they'll follow us because they trust us.
Yeah.
And, so.
Be wise, your leadership.
Yeah.
A lot of responsibility.
Yeah, it's a lot of responsibility.
It's true. It's. I mean, yeah. As a leader, you're going to be held accountable for a lot of things.
Yeah,
higher
man.
standards.
Everyone
too,
under
who
you.
you lead. Yeah. And it's the same thing as when you're husband, you are the priest of your home. Right?
Yeah, dude.
And you're held accountable for what you do in that.
For everything.
That's
And
true.
then, so we ended up leaving the church, backsliding.
10 years.
10 years, man. And then I was in the army, right? And the first person I met, they introduced me to my team leader. And they're like, you need to get close to your team leader because he's already going to leave in about 2 years. He ends up being the door director for Harlingen Church.
Yeah. Shout out to
freaking
God's
Roy,
really
man.
reaching out to you.
That guy, Roy Lozano, was a prime example of what a Christian is, bro. Like, no joke. Like, throughout my entire time of the military, we have a saying, you know, you work hard and party harder. Work hard and party harder. And for those whole 10 years, man, that was my life, bro. I was the best employee. I was the hardest worker. But when it came down to party, I'm gonna out party you. I'm gonna out drink you.
The hardiest partier.
Yeah, dude. And Roy was always there.
Fellowship.
Roy was always there, man. Roy was like, he'd be literally watching sermons on his phone, and I'd be sitting down next to him in the rental van, drinking my whole entire case of beer, and I'd be like, "Hey, that's a good point, Roy. Yeah, that's a good one right there, Roy." And then he would be kind of like looking at me like, "Bro," and I was like, "That's a good point, Roy. Get another beer." Oh man, amen to that one. And he'd be like, "Dude, like how?" He was just like, "Yeah." The thing about Roy is like he never judged me. He would just always tell me like, "Come on, man, you know better." And I was like, "Nah, no, I don't." And I was just like, "Whatever, dude." But he was a solid dude, man. And like I said, you know, don't mistake someone's kindness for weakness, because when it came, you know, time to go, like Roy was there, man. Roy was he was one of the best soldiers we had in our platoon, and he showed me the ropes. And yeah, man. Back to the 10 years, COVID happened. I ended up losing a job that was really good. I ended up finding another one that was really. If I could find a better job, better paying job, take care of my wife, take care of my kids, that's what I'm gonna do. So what ended up happening was I was working a job for about 4 or 5 years, and this other job came up, and it was like, "Hey man, we're gonna pay you $30 an hour, obviously Monday through Friday, but it's gonna be in Laredo." So I was like, "Dude, I'm down to go. Like, I'm always moving around anyways, you know." And I love my family, but my grandmother, that's what she had told my wife. She was like, "I'm glad you love, my grandson." I'll say it in Spanish and then I'll say it in English. My grandmother told my wife, she's like, "Es un caballo sin corral." He's a horse without a stall. Like that boy don't sit down. Like he's gonna be up and down everywhere. Don't expect him to be home. And sure enough, man, I was never home. And so then I told my wife like, "Look, man, I got this job, $30 an hour. Like the job that I had left before was paying me I think like 20, 25. So I was like, it's $5 more. It's a couple $1,000s more a year. We can continue maintaining the lifestyle that we lived with our 2 kids. Because my thing was, the way that I grew up, I don't want my kids to grow up that way. So whatever they want, I'll give it to them, bro. I'll give it. Like my kids are not gonna be wanting, bro. Just whatever you want, dude, is yours. Just ask. And that's how it was. And then I ended up leaving. And within those 3 days, bro, that job was like, I show up, I worked 2 days, and on the 3rd day, the job was like, "Hey man, something happened. We're not gonna pay you the $30 an hour." And I was like, "Okay." So then, how much you gonna pay me? Like $20, like 25. Nah, man, we're gonna bust you down to $12 an hour.
Oh wow!
I remember looking at the dude, and I was like,
30 to 12.
Yeah, like I was like, man, like.
Rough.
I gotta go.
Yeah, like this guy was about to end up in the back of my truck, bro. I was like, "Oh, like
I did everything for this job."
Yeah, dude, I did because the job that I had left told me like, just give us your 2 weeks, and if it doesn't work out, you can come back, bro. And I was like, okay. So I told that job that I was leaving. I was like, hey, my other job wants me to leave, like give my 2 weeks notice, and they're like, we need you tomorrow, dude. You need to show up tomorrow, or else we're gonna give this job to somebody else. And I was like, crunch time. I was like, all right, $30 an hour, I'm gone. I left, and then 3 days later, they were like, no. So I was like, I can't go back to my other job, dude. Like, well, there's no point in me calling them anyways. They told me, like, you cannot come back. And I was like, man, dude. I remember the whole drive home, man, I was just like, God was already kind of breaking me down. Like, I was already, like, struggling. I had 2 friends of mine. One friend of mine had already passed away from the Army a couple of years before, and it was coming up on the anniversary of his death. Another one that was in the Army as well, he had just passed away a couple months ago prior. So I was already in that mindset, like, man, my friends are dying all over again. This was my childhood, like, all over again. My friends are dying. I got other friends that are not doing well mentally. I was like, man, I was coming home, and then God breaks me, bro. God breaks me. I lose that freaking job. I come home, my bills are due. Mortgage due, rent due, car payment due, everything due. And I'm just like...
And I gotta do.
Yeah, and I'm like, what am I gonna do?
Yeah.
Like, money's not coming in no more.
Yeah.
I left just like that. And I went in, one thing that I was prided myself in was that I had my drinking under control. I was like, I would drink, but I was like, I gotta go to work in the morning, so this is the limit.
A functioning alcoholic.
Yeah, I was like, okay, now this is my limit because I gotta go to work in the morning. And I'll go to work in the morning, like, no big deal. But I was already dealing with so many things, and now I don't have a job, and it just spiraled out of control, man. And I ended up going like on a 4 or 5 day drinking binge, dude. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I didn't even eat nothing. I was just drinking. And my wife saw that, and she would tell me like, in Spanish, man. My wife doesn't even really speak that much Spanish, so that's how I know she's upset. And she would tell me, she's like, "Ya no es maña." She's like, "Ya es vicio." Like she would tell me it's no longer a habit. It's already your vice.
Wow.
And I was like, whatever, whatever, baby. I go, look, I ain't got no job. I already applied everywhere that I could apply to. I just got to sit back and wait. So might as well have some fun and drink. And that's all I did, man. I drank it. But after a while, man, that drinking consumes you, bro. And that's one thing that I had to make peace with is that when I drink, I get intrusive thoughts, man. I start having crazy thoughts. I started like wanting to do dangerous things because that was my entire life in the military. I was a mortarman, bro. I worked with explosives. Danger was my middle name. Like I loved, like, yeah, dude, like I loved that movie American Sniper when they asked Chris Kyle, how do you feel? And he's like, dangerous. Dangerous. Like that was everyone's mentality in the military, like so full of pride, so we feel invincible. Like there was a point in time where 3 mortar rounds back to back ended up misfiring in my mortar tube, meaning they didn't come out how they were supposed to. And I was the youngest one there, and they're like, well, you're the gunner, you got to walk into the dud pit, man. So there I am, a young 19-year-old, 20-year-old walking a freaking mortar round that has already struck the primer, and I'm walking into the dud pit.
Could have exploded on you.
Could have exploded any time, and I did that 3 times back to back. After a while, my sergeant came and he was like, all right, 3 strikes and you're out, Sergio. If that happens one more time, you're not walking it anymore, man. He's like, that's just unsafe. And I was like, oh, all right. But I spiraled out of control, man. I ended up weeping, man, because I ended up getting so drunk one time that I was upset that I ran out of beer. And I remember I went through a whole 5th of Jack as well. I ended up going through my house, and I was like, I know I have a 5th of Jack somewhere. And I found a big bottle of Jack, and I just, boom, popped it open and just went to town on that. Got in my truck, and I started to have fun. I started doing donuts in my truck, peeling out, because I have like I have like a good-sized acre, man. So that was my thing. I got in my truck. I cranked up my music because I'm a big Southern rock and roll fan, man. And I mean, I grew up on Leonard Skinner a lot, dude. So I just cranked up my Leonard Skinner, bro, and just went to town, bro, drinking 5th of Jack. And it was around vacation time for my kids. So my kids were with their grandparents. They were out of town, actually. My grandparents took them out of town. And I just spiraled out of control, brother. I just couldn't control my drinking. I was just, like, yelling at my wife. We would get into arguments, and I was like, whatever, man. At like, one point, she hid the keys. At one point, she hid my keys, and I tried to start my tractor to go to the drive-thru and go get more beer. I was like trying to crank it and it wouldn't start, and I was like, I was like, man.
So you were spiraling. You were already at this point in your life where you were spiraling out of control.
Yeah.
You were unrecognizable, right?
Yeah.
And your wife already knew that. She saw it, and she pointed out to you that you were not the same anymore. She did not recognize who you were anymore.
Yeah, man.
So what happened? I guess explain to what happened next after that.
So after that, she just told me, she's like, man, she's like, I don't even know who you are anymore, man. She's like, she was doing work on her laptop, and she hid the keys. And I remember she told me, she was like, you need to just go outside and drink till you pass out. She's like, because I'm not going to be dealing with you.
Wow.
And she's like, in this house like that, and your kids don't need to see you like that.
Yeah.
And I remember, man, I was getting so emotional, right? But because it was a scary point in my life where my wife looked at me and she's like, you were always telling me stories about how your dad was before he came to Christ and how he would drink a lot and he was very abusive to your mom and sometimes to you guys. And she's like, and that's what you're becoming right now, dude. She's like, you're becoming like that. And then I was just like, whatever, man. I was like, whatever, dude. Yeah, like, whatever. I was like, I remember I would tell her, you don't even know what it's like to be married to a real Mexican husband that doesn't even come home weeks on end, that takes all your money because I would give you all the money. Yeah, you know what I mean? I come home and be like, here you go, pay everything what you got to do, and then I got to go back to work. And I was like, I was like, whatever, and I would leave. And I left, and I remember I just, like, spiraled out of control. I drank that whole that whole bottle of Jack Daniels because that was always my drink of choice. And I just got to the point where I was like, man, I don't even care anymore, man. I was just, like, thinking to myself, like, all right, I'll just get in my truck or probably get on a horse ride because I love horse riding. I would always help out my friends in the ranch. And I was like, I'm going to go down the expressway and Hopefully they try to pull me over, and I was like, and if they pull me over, man, I hope their car's got gas, cause I ain't gonna stop. Like, I ain't gonna stop, man. Like I'm just
Is it
gonna
really
go.
drinking and driving on a horse?
Yeah, kind of, man.
Is it a DUI? Is that a DUI?
I mean,
Just consider what.
yes and no. Like, yes and no, because technically you're not driving, but at the same time, the horse doesn't know what a red light is.
Yeah.
Horse doesn't know what a stop sign is.
But was the horse drunk too or no?
He's out there.
If the horse was me, bro, if the horse was me, that horse was gonna be buzzing just as I was, bro.
The horse with the tube.
Because I'll tell you, bro, I was lit. I went through like 24 packs of beer. I found that whole bottle of Jack, and I was like, it's go time, bro.
But at that point in life, you're just like,
Yeah.
I didn't care.
you were just
So
feeling
God had to
something.
completely break you
He
down.
broke me down because you got to understand that, like, when I had a job and I had responsibilities, obviously, right, the military instilled that discipline in me is that, like, okay, you're a professional. You got to take care of business. So I would drink, and I'd be like, okay, I'm going to stop drinking right now because I got to go to work. Or, I got to go to work the next day. So by 10 o'clock, 9 o'clock, I'm done drinking because I got to get up and go to work at 4:30 in the morning. But here I am. I just lost a job. I don't know if I'm going to be working in the next month or so.
Yeah.
I don't have nothing to do but drink because I had a little nest egg. So I had kind of like paid off a couple of my bills just to be okay if I couldn't find a job. And everything else was just party time, bro. Party time. My kids were with my in-laws. I think they were out of town, and it was just party time.
Yeah. And so, how did you come back to church?
My daughter, man.
For that.
My daughter started coming back to church. She was in Little Fishers, and my wife had always been in contact with Sister Connie since they were kids. So, she's known Sister Connie since my wife was a kid. And she was the one in charge of Children's Church, and she would text my wife. She's like, your daughter prays for y'all?
Wow.
And then I was like, well, that's good. Me in my,
I need it.
yeah, like me in my drunken stupor, bro. Like, yeah, I was like, good. I was like, daddy needs a job, baby. So, yeah.
Moralic responses.
Yeah, dude, I was very sarcastic. I was like, well, good, daddy needs a job. I'm gonna crack open another beer. Thank you, Jesus.
Wow.
Boom, pound it. And my daughter kept praying for us. And in one of those drunken moments, I ended up calling my brother-in-law,
Matthew.
I ended up calling him, and I was like, dude, I'm bored. I got nothing to do. And he's like, why don't you come over here, man? Come over to Corpus. Come and have a family vacation. And I told him, well, if I go, I'm going to go over there drink. I'm gonna go over there drinking. And he was like, no. He's like, if you come over here, don't come over here with your mess, bro. He's like, because your nieces think the world of you, and they don't need to see you that way.
Yeah. Wow.
And I was like, all right.
So all of this, it's like everything kept pointing back to where you really.
No matter where I went to, bro, no matter what job I did, there was always someone there to tell me, hey, man, Jesus is and Jesus that. And I was like, oh, my God, I don't want to hear it, bro.
Yeah.
Like, I'm trying. I was a lineman for many years, and I was like, dude, I'm over here trying to fix this freaking cable on the power line, bro. I'm not worried about Jesus right now. Like, I'm trying not to die up here, all right? Tell me about Jesus later. Ironically, right? But that's how it was, man. And I ended up going to Corpus. The night before I come back home, Matthew says, come to church with us. I didn't want to be disrespectful to him after him opening up his house to us. I went to church. Their pastor is such a nice man, but he was very, like,
In your face.
Yeah, in my face. And I was like, me already, like, I'm coming off of a whole week and a half of drinking. I'm not in the right mindset. And I'm like, dude, I didn't tell him, but I was thinking, like, you need to get out of my face right now, bro. I'm about to light you up. My wife was grabbing onto my right hand, like, really hard because she felt me already wanting to tug. And she was, like, pretending to worship Jesus because she wasn't even saved. She was just like that. Don't. And I was like, ugh, man. So I was like, fine, man, I'll pray with you, bro. Like, to get him out of my way. I prayed. I come back. And then that Wednesday, because we came back on a Monday, that Wednesday was Pastor Greg's farewell sermon. And I tell him all the time, like, hey, no disrespect. I don't even know what you're praying, what you're preaching about. I just remember Dallas was about to kick off in about 30 minutes, and you're on your third point, bro. Like, you need to, let's go.
I tell him that every time you pray.
I'm like, let's go, man. They end up doing the altar call. I don't raise my hand. Javi Sr. comes up to me.
Shout out to Greg.
Yeah, Pastor Greg, you a real one, man.
Yeah.
And Brother Javi Sr. comes up to me during the altar call. He doesn't know me, and the way he starts dealing with me, bro, is like if he knew me my entire life. He starts telling me all this stuff about how he grew up in the hood as well, and he doesn't know me. And if you guys are seeing this podcast on YouTube, you see me now, right? My hair slicked back and my mustache, right? I didn't come to church like that. My hair was up to my shoulders.
Mm-hmm. I already had a pony.
Yeah, my wife would tell me, if you go to church, you're either going to pick up your hair in a bun or you're going to have it in a ponytail. in a braid. And I was like, all right, because my hair was long. It was up to past my shoulders already. My goatee was all the way up to my chest as well. I had on big old earrings, man, and my cowboy hat. Like that's always been my thing. Like,
did I have long hair at the time? I don't know.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, you had long hair too. So that's why I was like,
It's not about you.
so I was like, everybody got long hair. I was like, that's cool.
I feel good here.
Yeah, I was like, all right,
Did you put it in a bun too? Or?
Yeah.
It looks like Sanders came down a little bit.
Yeah. So, Brother Javi started to deal with me and how he grew up, and he's like, you're in that same boat. He's like, all those OGs that told you that they got you for life, that they would hold your hand. Who's holding your hand right now? He's like, he's like, when you're stuck in the mud, he's like, who are you turning to? He's like, because the way he looks at you, man, he goes, you ain't got nobody right now. And for real, I really didn't, man. Like, I was just like, I was like, yeah. And he's like, do you want to pray? And I was like, I better pray with this guy, or else he's going to be like the other preacher from Corpus and just not leave me alone. You know, and I was like, all right. So I went and I prayed with him. And my scapegoat was always the fact that my wife didn't pray. You know, like someone would come up and want to pray with my wife, and she'd be like, no, thank you. So I was like, oh, okay, she didn't get saved. That's good for me. And then I get up, I turn around to go back to my seat, and Brother Javi's wife is praying with my wife. Dang it. And I was like, oh, man. I was like,
I gotta pray.
I was like,
I gotta get saved now.
So on the way home, the kids fell asleep in the back of the car, and I'm driving home, and I asked my wife, I was like, hey, so were you legit when you're praying, or like, what's up? And my wife just looked at me like cold heart staring. She was like, yes. She's like, I'm tired. She's like, aren't you tired? And my voice gets shaky, man, because with everything that was going on, I was like, yeah, man, I'm a wreck, bro. I was drinking every night, like 224 packs, getting up to get my kids ready to go to school. I drop them off at school, probably stop at a Stripe or something, get another 24 pack for the day. And just like that, man, that was day in, day out.
Rinse and repeat.
Yeah, rinse and repeat, man.
Yeah. So from there, you came back to church.
Yeah, because my daughter. Because every time we would come back, it's because my daughter had a function. Like, they'd be like, children's church is doing something. So she'd be like, Daddy, can you come? Daddy, can you come? I was like, okay. So I'd go there to fulfill that for my daughter.
Yeah.
And it took that for God to, like, my daughter praying for me. I found out that my sister was praying for me. I found out that my wife's family was praying for me because they saw me all spiraling out of control. And
it's like no one ever gave up on you. They were all still there for you.
Yeah, but at the same time, it was tough love because I didn't know that they were praying for me.
Yeah.
I didn't go to them for help either.
Yeah.
It was just like, okay, hey, how's it going, Sergio? Hey, it's going good. And there I was going through everything, man, just being a drunken mess. Like, I wasn't a drunken mess in public. I could function well in public and be respectful. But as soon as I got home, bro, it was just boom, beer and liquor, and cigars and my cigarettes and my dip, bro, my tobacco, and let's go. Yeah.
And so from there, y'all are now back in the church.
Yeah, man, we came back to church. We got radically saved. Like, I just balled out on my own once everybody went to bed. I remember just getting on my knees, and I was like, man, God, if you're for real, if you're trying to just do something, like, I have nowhere to go. I have nowhere to turn. I put myself in this hole, and I keep trying to dig myself out, and I'm digging myself deeper. And I already knew, like, if I go back to the way I used to be as a teenager, like, my life is gone.
Yeah.
Because I still have family members that were about that life. And the devil knows it, man. And they would always come calling, like, hey, and I would see, like, my family needs, my bills need to be paid. That money that I had as a nest egg is running low. And I can go make that quick run. And be right back, leveled out with some extra cash in my pocket, but at what risk? I'm going to end up getting locked up like my old man, 3 years, maybe even more, because I know
kids and a wife.
Yeah, I have kids and a wife. I know my attitude. So my attitude is not reserved, because, I had a little bit more screws loose, I mean, if I go to jail, I remember I would tell my wife, if I go to prison, I ain't never coming out, because I'm only 5'5", so I got to be the craziest person in there. Like, I'm not a big dude.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
you resisted that temptation to go back because you had already learned that.
Yeah, it's just
that lesson. Yeah,
I already learned that lesson, man.
And so how did God restore your life after that? You came back.
I just prayed and I said, I'm leaving everything in your hands. And I remember praying, telling God, if I'm too far gone, then just take me already, because my kids don't need this. And I remember the next morning I got up, I just sobered up, showered, and I dropped off my kids. And I remember I showed up to prayer in the morning because Pastor Corey was like, he's like, just come and pray. Even if you don't know what to pray for, just show up. Just show up and sit there. and thank God for your life. And I remember that's what I did. I showed up with long hair, big old earrings, man. I showed up for prayer the next morning. I remember Pastor Corey was in here praying, and he looks at me, and he just went back to praying, and I was just like, I remember I sat here and I was just looking at his pulpit, and I was like, well, God, I don't know what to pray for, but I'm here. Pastor Corey told me to show up, so I'm here. Do your magic, right? I guess, right? Like
work, God, work.
Yeah, do something. Yeah. And that's what ended up happening, man. My wife had ended up applying for me. I didn't know this, right? She did this all on her own, so man, like she's always been a rock for me, man. Like that's how it's supposed to be, you know. A marriage is supposed to be 50-50. Even when you can't complete that 50, she can complete that 50. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And she applied for me, man, for all these jobs. One night I remember I saw her staying up. I thought she was, you know, doing work, but she was applying for me for all these jobs. And the county ends up calling me, saying, hey, you know, we need a drill instructor, preferably a veteran that can work in corrections for juveniles. And I was like, all right. So I went, I got the interview, I got the job. And now I'm able to, you know, obviously with discipline, talk to these youth and tell them where you're at now is not where you could be, because I used to be like you. I used to be like you, wanting that life, but look at where it's gotten you. You're here with me, and I'm yelling at you 24/7, 365. Is that what you want for the rest of your life? For you know, for when you get older, you go to a prison, and for a CO to be yelling at you all the time? No, you don't.
Yeah, definitely not. You don't want.
Yeah,
that example.
You don't want that. This is your wake up call, kid. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So wow, that's really awesome, Sergio. Yeah. So
it's an incredible testimony.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So coming off the streets, right, and although you've heard the gospel, you knew the gospel for a long time from your family, right? But being a kid, going to the streets, hanging out with the wrong crowd, realizing that it's definitely not something that you know you shouldn't follow. So then you try church, you try going to it. Not necessarily something that's really working out for you either. You're not feeling it at the moment, right?
Yeah.
So then you join the military. You kind of find you're something that's grounding you, right, in a sense.
Yeah.
It's keeping you stable off the streets from getting anywhere worse, right? You know, causing more, something, leading you down a darker path, right?
Yeah.
And then eventually bring you back home, and then bring you, still not wanting to fully surrender, right? But then somehow bringing a full circle back to where God needed you to be. Yeah. There is a scripture I do want to, that I felt like that was very relatable to, right? So it says, it's Psalms 139, verse 7. It says, where can I go from your spirit? Or where can I flee from your presence? If I ascend into heaven, you are there. If I make my bed in hell, behold, you are there.
Yeah.
So even though, right?
Yeah.
Thinking that you're running from God, you're running, you're fleeing from God, you're doing your own thing, right? But even though he's still there, he still calls you out.
Still chasing you.
Still chasing you. Yeah. And so, man, it's just powerful to see that, you know, like, that this story, right, this testimony alone, no matter where you run, anyone in general, no matter how far you run, God is still there. You can't outrun God. He's always going to be there.
Yeah, man.
Even in your darkest places of your life.
Yeah, man. One scripture that I always kept coming back to for some odd reason, man. Every time someone would always tell me something, or I would just open up the Bible in general, it would always open up to this scripture, and like I've like saved it, man, over times, and it's funny because even when we went to the marriage retreat, there was that in that same passage, it was there, and it's Hebrews 12, chapter 12, verse 6, and it says, "My son, don't take the Lord's discipline lightly, or faint when you are reproved by Him." Meaning, like, you know, like, don't faint away when He disciplines you.
Yeah.
For the Lord disciplines the ones He loves and punishes every son for who He receives.
Yeah.
Like a parent, basically saying, you know, like,
it's like a father.
Yeah, you know, I'm gonna whoop you till you break because you're doing something bad, and once you break, then I can work with you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
A potter's hand.
When you're broken. Yeah.
That's what potters do.
Yeah, man. It's like I've always kept coming back to that, and you know, once I, you know, just surrendered and everything, I like took a look at that scripture and I was like, you could have let me die so many times, you know.
Yeah.
8 years in the military, you know, my job was dangerous in the military for what I had to do. I could have died very easily. In the streets, I could have died very easily, but you didn't, you know, and I've seen where God has let people go into their sins and they don't come back. And, you know, and I'm always just glad now that I wasn't one of the ones, you know, where that window of time didn't slip me by, because God will give you that window of grace, and where random people will just come and tell you about God, and you come to Christ.
Yeah.
But for how long? How long is that window open for? We don't know.
That's true.
Because once that window closes, like, that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. God's gonna say, I did all I could, man. I'm gonna, you want your sin so bad. All right, here it is. And I'm gonna give you the whole smoke. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
He'll let you have it.
Yeah, he'll let you have it. And I just by grace, like that OG in my hood that gave me grace and said, you're either about this life or you're not, but you got to make the decision now. God had to break me and say, either you're about this life or you ain't, and you need to make the decision now, because time is short and time's running out.
Well, even he was still able to use someone from the hood to direct you out of that. That's crazy.
Yeah.
God, the way God works, and it's crazy. You went into the military, and there's still someone there.
Still someone
there.
No matter where you run.
You back.
All these years of backsliding, 10 years, it's like it's always been.
No matter where I went,
point in your life,
no matter where I go, there was always someone there like, hey, man, what church do you go to, bro? And I was like, I don't go to church, man, And I wasn't disrespectful. I was just like, I don't go to church right now. Oh, okay. Hey, man. And I just, even if it wasn't from the door, it was just someone always trying to tell me about God. And I was always like, man, dude, like,
it's like God put it in your
life.
life.
I get it. Like, I'm trying to work here. But, yeah, man.
That's, as we're closing up here, is there any final message, anything that you would want to give to, I guess, a younger audience, people that might be in your shoes?
Yeah, man, don't think that no one's there. Don't think that no one's holding your hand in the dark.
Yeah.
God's there.
Yeah.
All you have to do is put your pride aside, man. Because that was my biggest issue, was my ego. I tell people, I'm only 5'5", but my ego was 6'3". You know what I mean? Like you couldn't break me, because if someone would try to, like, man, who are you? I did 8 years in the military, been in some of the, in dangerous situations. Like, you ain't gonna break me. Your little sob story ain't gonna move me, man. You know what I mean? You didn't grow up like I did. You grew up in a 2-parent household. But at the same time, I was dealing with my own pride, that, like, that sadness that, I never had anyone to help me. I never had anyone to show me how to do things. If any advice that I can give to the youth, to the teenager, is, you're not on your own, man. Look for help. Don't count it a weakness to ask for help. I count it a weakness if you don't ask for help, because you have no one to blame but yourself. You have people around you that love you. Ask for help. That's what they're there for. And that's one thing I had to learn the hard way many times. Don't be scared to rely on your brothers, to lean on your brothers. Like that scripture says, iron sharpens iron. That's the only way you're gonna learn. Like in the hood, we would always say, hey, I'm gonna put you on game. Meaning I'm gonna teach you how it's supposed to be played. They're gonna help you out. They're gonna hold your hand. And after a while, yes, they're gonna let go of your hand once you know the flow of things. But until then, ask for help. Don't be scared to go to your brothers, to go to your pastor and say, hey, I'm dealing with this. What do I do? Or how do I go about it?
Yeah.
That's what they're there for. There are shepherds. That's what the shepherd staff, that's what it's for. When the sheep kind of get too far out, that's why it has that hook, to go and bring that sheep back.
Yeah. And then is there also anything else you would like to say for people that are in the church and that are still kind of not fully surrendered, that are not quite there, they just don't want to fully surrender to God?
Time is short, man. That window is slipping.
Yeah.
And if you let that window slip, all I can say is, good luck, man. As one that has seen both the good and the bad, like, if you're teetering and tottering of, what do I do? How do I go about it? You already know. You already know the truth. You already know what's right and wrong.
Yeah.
You need to just man up and do what's right, because it's very easy to leave the church, because anybody can do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very easy to wash your hands and say, I'm gonna go do this over here where nobody knows me. But it takes a man to say, no, I'm gonna go ahead and stick it out. Plant your flag. Say, I'm not gonna be moved. I know this is the right thing to do, even though I can't see what's going on right now. It's the right thing to do to stay here, because once that window closes, brother or sister in the church, that window's closed forever. And that's it. That's all I gotta say, man. Time is short.
Yeah.
They would always tell us in the military, the world don't stop just because we're over here doing our thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
One more question I would want you to answer, or advice, right, to people as far as when it comes to discipleship. Is there anything you would want to tell anyone as far as people discipling people in the church, I guess, saints.
Yeah, you gotta have grace, man. Not everything has to be like, well, you need to do it now, and you need to learn, and you need to hurry up. No, you need to have grace because you don't know what that person is going through. Like I said, iron sharpens iron, yes. But if you try to sharpen a blade too fast, either with other iron or on a sharpening stone, you're gonna break that blade, and that blade is useless. You know what I mean? It takes long, smooth strokes to sharpen that blade, back and front, and you're working it. You're working it for hours, minutes, days, until that blade is at a fine point where it can cut the hair off your arm. And if you try to sharpen it too fast, what's gonna happen? You're gonna end up dulling the blade. You're gonna end up breaking the point of the blade, and then that blade becomes useless. And you have nothing to work with. All you got is something that you could throw at somebody with, and it's not gonna be effective.
Yeah.
When you have a blade, it needs to be sharp. It needs to be, capable to do what it's called to do.
Yeah.
Or else, then what's the point of having the blade? What's the point of discipling someone if you're just gonna critique them to the point where you're breaking them down to the point where they think that they're nothing and they're not worthy of this? No. You need to, when you disciple someone, you need to work with them, and you need to help them out so they can have that confidence to say, hey, I can do this. I got this on my own, and they can go and disciple someone else. And the chain goes on, and the chain goes on, and the chain goes on. That's how it's supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's just...
No, that was really good, Sergio. That was appreciate it. But as we're closing out here, Levi, you have anything you want to ask?
Say as a closing statement, everything you said right now, man, was awesome, man. I mean, hopefully people that hear this get something out of it. And obviously, you can never be too far gone from God, too far from God for him to touch you, man. I mean, God's always there. And I feel like if you're watching this and you feel like, you're in a hole, I mean, man, just lay down your pride, like you said, Sergio, and really just contend for God. And yeah, God is waiting for you. He's there knocking at your heart's door. But yeah.
Yeah. Jason?
We serve a gracious and merciful God.
Yeah.
He loves us, and he has not given up on us.
Yeah.
He's there ready to receive us with open arms.
Yeah, that's true. And that was really good. Now that's something that especially I really wanted you to point on that because I feel like that's something that we can always, as a lot of saints in the church can really learn is grace. And even myself, I've had to learn that it was grace, right? Grace matters. Love. It's not everyone is gonna get it right away, like you said.
Yeah.
Right. It's sometimes you just got to be patient. Different strokes for different folks, like Pastor always says. And you just, it's just love, grace, compassion.
All right.
It's true. All right. Anyways, we thank you guys for joining us on this another
good
episode of the No Days Off podcast. We appreciate Sergio for jumping on here on the podcast,
man.
giving your testimony and your message to the audience, what you went through. But we thank you guys for joining us. Thank you, Levi, Jason. We got to thank our hosts because they're so amazing and adorable.
Oh, yeah.
And amazing.
One more than the other.
Yeah, Sergio, it'd be good to have you back, man, later on another
Anytime,
episode.
man.
And
Absolutely. Yeah, he has so many stories we would love to
Yeah, I know, man.
deep into this.
The next 10 episodes are
Yeah, a whole saga about him. A whole saga about him.
season. The whole
Sergio.
Season Sergio. Season Sergio.
Every thumbnail's like him.
Just do it like that.
Trust me, man. I went on a lot of adventures, man. Good and bad.
No, it was really good having you, man. We had a good time.
Okay,
and
definitely.
Stories.
Appreciate it. We'll eventually have you back on again. So, but we thank you guys. Thank you guys for joining us on another episode of the No Days Off podcast. We appreciate Sergio, Jason, and Levi for being on here. You guys take care. Stay in the Word of God. No days off in Jesus Christ and content for the Word. Say no days off, Sergio.
No days off.
No days off.
Let's go! Woo! His face was like, bro, no.